If you want to see me swatch the Violet Voss Hashtag palette, then stick around. Hi there, it's Hélène, aka HMM Makeup or Makeup. I am so excited today because I am finally going to swatch this Violet Voss Hashtag palette. It has actually been in my palette drawer for a while, and I wanted it to be the right time to swatch, and today feels like the right time to swatch, so I'm going to swatch this palette. Now, I do have another Violet Voss palette that I really very much enjoy, and it's the Like a Boss palette. I've done the swatches for that palette, and I will put them right there. And I've done a few looks as well with it on camera. I'll put at least the first impressions there as well. So this is what the palette looks like, and as far as the loveliness of this palette, it's right down the center and the bottom row. That is really where I concentrate my efforts when I decide to do a look with this palette. Now, I was concerned that there would be a lot of overlap between this one and the Hashtag, and when I really looked at a bunch of pictures, not really. There are, I think, two neutrals on the top row. It's this one and this one, I would say, that are probably very similar, and then the black down here. But apart from that, there really isn't any overlap between this Like a Boss and the Hashtag palette. So I am really excited to be adding to my Violet Voss collection because this Like a Boss palette has been so good to me that I'm excited to just expand the number of colors I have from the brand. Now, this Hashtag palette is not as blingy, technical term, as the other one, but what drew me to it was the supporting characters here of extra golds and the purples. I really think it is a beautiful palette, and gold, lime green, and purple are favorites of mine, so I have trouble seeing how I'm not going to like this palette. And as I mentioned, this one, and I think this one somewhat are a little bit of duplication from the other palette, but given how many colors there are, we've got 20 in this one, I'm not concerned over two shadows, and two shadows that are very useful. A cream color and a black are useful in virtually every palette. Yes, we don't necessarily need one in every palette, but it doesn't bother me, is what I'm trying to say. I dip into it often enough. Okay, I've talked enough, so let's talk about swatches. And since we have 20, I'm kind of inclined to do row by complete row. So what I'm thinking of doing is this first row of 5 and the second row all on one arm, and then switching and doing this row and this row on the other arm. And the reason I'm thinking that is because to me they're somewhat sections. There's the pretty neutral on the top, and then warm and cool, more colorful options on the second half of the palette. So let's do that and see how it goes. And I think I'm going to be swatching only with 3 fingers because it's only 20 shadows. It's not like a 35 pan palette. I think I'll be okay with swatching with 3 fingers. So I'm going to stop talking and we are going to start swatching. Okay, so we're going to start right up here with Fresh, Sauce, and Savage. Fresh is a nice light cream, good for brow bone. Seems to be kind of the only color in the palette that would be for brow bone, so it's nice that it's there. And also, to a certain extent, inner lid if you're trying to do a really soft look. Okay, so we've got the first 3. Fresh, Sauce, and Savage. All right, we're going to go in a second time. Fresh, Sauce, and Savage. All right, so we've got those three. I'm not super excited by that kind of a neutral matte, but the thing is, they're supporting characters, in my opinion. For the most part, in my looks, mattes are supporting characters unless they're quite vibrant like the last two rows. And I know they need to be in there, and that's fine. So we're going to get into the next three. Okay, and we have Goat, Illy, and Truth. And I forget what the acronym for GOAT means. I'll put it on the screen for you. I talk about goats so often, I should know it by heart by now, but for some reason, I'm having a brain fart. Don't remember. Oh boy, look at those last two, hey? Goat. Illy. Or Eily, I'm not sure. It could be Eily, because it's only one L. And Truth. How could I forget that name? Truth. A bit of black got into it. I'll have to fix that in the second swatch. Okay, that black and that gold are impressive. They really don't need a second swatch. Look at those fingers. Wow. Okay, here we go anyway. And Truth, the gold, has that tackiness that I really appreciate from the metallics and shimmers from Violet Voss. Not every brand does that, so when I get something like that that's super, and look at the intensity of those mattes. You don't have to be begging that black to do its job. Okay. These two are really impressive. Eily and Truth. And Goat is not bad itself. Now let's see if the black comes off my fingers. I don't know if it will. Oh boy, oh boy. Look at my finger. I'm trying to wipe it off. All right, and now we have 4 more in the second row. I think I am going to use my pinky for the last one. So I'm going to use, do 4 swatches. All right, so let's take a look. Yeah, a color like Lit, which is on my pinky, usually swatches super well. So I'm not worried about using a pinky for that one. Okay, so we have Lady Boss, which I don't think those two words need to be together. A boss is a boss, but that's just me. No Filter. I guess that was me using No Filter, huh? Yeah. All right, that is beautiful. That is a very nice color. Next one is Throwback. And last one is Lit. Pinky, do not disappoint. And it did not. Look at that. I culled it correctly. Very nice. Woohoo! Okay, let's go in a second time. Look at that color payoff. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. And every time I swatch a palette that I'm just nervous about, but I know it's a brand I like, I always kick myself going, why did you not swatch this sooner? But at the same time, it's kind of like the advent calendar. I like to let things sit a little bit and have the anticipation drive me at some point. Okay, so that one is Lady Boss, my least favorite shadow name in the entire palette. Next one is No Filter. Again, I am not using my filter today. And then we have Throwback. And Lit. I think Lit is something else. Wow, I did not think I was going to like that color. That's why swatches are so important. Okay, so this, you could call it the neutral slash gold set of rows. It looks like I dipped my fingers in gold and bronze. That's beautiful. Okay, and so I took those first two rows as being the boring ones, right? And I'm, as somebody I know would say, I am shooketh by the first two rows. It looks really, really good. I am full of anticipation now then for row number 3 and 4. How can they not be good compared to the first two that are normally colors and finishes that don't excite me super intensely? Yeah, I think this is going to be a lot of fun. So we're going to go first off, obviously, with row 3, and then go to the last row. And 3 fingers. And we have vacay, goals, and FOMO. Well, that's a nice pairing right there. Let's redo the swatch. Okay, so vacay, goals, that built up nicely. And FOMO. FOMO is just really pretty. Yeah, they all built up quite nicely. And fingers, good stuff. There is some staining power to these these shadows. I was going to call them pigments. I mean, they really stain the fingers. That's impressive. And jeans are a good way to wipe the hands, aren't they? Okay, so we have the next ones. I'm going to go with 3. So we've got low key, living, and what's this one? Sunset? Yeah, sunset. So those are the next 3 we're going to do. The Royal We. Living, I am really excited about. It's a neat color. And sunset. And sunset was very loose in the pan. I'm curious about that. Okay, so living. Oh, so sorry, that's low key. Low key, this one is living. Oh, I'm much happier with living being on this, the name on this shadow. Yeah, because this one is definitely more low key. This one I'm living for. It's beautiful. And then there's sunset. And this one, as I said, was pretty loosely packed in the palette. And we're going to go in for second swatch. I'm liking this trio. Looks really good. Really good. Okay. Again, that's low key. Living. Oh, gosh, this is beautiful. It's giving me the same kind of feel as the one shadow in the Barbie and Pure palette that just absolutely stopped me in my tracks, and it was in the last set of swatches I did for that palette. I'm really liking those. And this one is growing on me for sure. It's very pretty. Okay, we have 4 shadows to go and we are done. 20 shadows can go by quickly. And then we'll do, of course, a comparison and take a look at the whole color story swatched. Because as we know, on the arm is not like what we see in the palette, oftentimes. Okay, so here are the last 4. So we've seen sunset, and we have these last 4 to do. And I will use the pinky on Life because it is a vibrant enough color. I think it will show up quite nicely. So let's do that right away. Okay, here are the fingers. And let's take a look. So here is Relevant. Then we have TBT, to be truthful. I don't know what TBT means. Do you know what TBT means? I'll have to look it up and put it on the screen. Pretty AF, which I have high expectations for a color that says it's pretty AF. Boy, it matches my nail polish. Okay, it's not a bad color. I don't think it's that pretty, but it's a nice color. And then Life. Okay, so those are the 4 colors. And if the pinky's not doing a great job, I'll just go and re-swatch it with one of my more primary fingers, bigger fingers. All right, back into those 4 relevant TBT, Pretty AF, and Life. All right, let's see how these build up. Relevant is a very interesting color. Very interesting. This one, TBT, builds up nicely. That's a very powerful matte. You can make a very nice look with that one. And then Pretty AF. Let's see what happens with Pretty AF on the second swatch. Yeah, much nicer. Much deeper, much nicer. And then Life. And Life, I'm going to wipe my fingers off and just give Life, well, a little more life with a different finger. But on the, look at that, right? I want that to show up on the arm. So let's see if we can make that happen. And that TBT, look at the power of that matte. And swatching twice is a good idea. I don't think that we ever dip our brush in. It's very rare that we dip our brush in once to do a look, right? We tend to go in light, intensify to get to where we want to. And I think that a swatch is nice to show us where the kind of intensity and depth we can get with a given shadow. It gives us a chance to see how it builds up, really. And what's in the pan is often not how it's going to look on the skin, right? And of course, I mean, you want to watch people swatch who have sometimes the same skin tone as you do if you really, really want to know, have a better idea of what it might look like on your complexion, right? Okay, so I said I was going to go back in with Life. Just give it a little more oomph. Okay, well, I won't go too many times. That's 3 swatches already. So it is a lighter payoff with a bit of shine to it. Okay, so as I wipe my finger, I'm going to stack my arms, and let's take a look at the whole color story and what I think of it. And please, in the comments, let me know what you think of this color story. That's interesting, the way it stacks. Look at the goldy bronze and the orangey pinks stacked together. It's really neat to see them that way. And I mean, this would be a predictable, you know, the stacking of the first 5 over the first part of the 3rd row. But somehow this is intriguing to me to see them like that. Orange gold and red gold. Interesting, okay. And then I was seeing this as my combination of golds, oranges, and purples. But I'm also seeing some interesting opportunities here with these couple and some that are further down. But the gold is an obvious one for purple. I think that that's always a nice pairing. I'm impressed with the quality of the metallic shadows in Violet Voss. I think that the color payoff is always really, really good. The mattes are solid, but Violet Voss unless you go to a very colorful palette, won't have super colorful mattes in its 20 shadow palettes. More like the 12 pan-ish size, the smaller ones will have those vibrant colors in will have certain opportunities for those colors. So I don't expect super colorful mattes in the 20 pan, although I think that they've served me well here with those three. This is not quite a matte, but pretty decent options there. I'm not huge on orange, but if you are, that looks like a good one. And I'm happy about the matte black. And then these, well, I guess these two are useful, but these I don't care either way about their inclusion. Yeah, if you have, let me go back here because this one was the first one. If you have any requests for looks or any questions about any of the shadows in this palette, let me know. The hashtag palette is a permanent palette in the Violet Voss lineup. I remember having looked at it not that long ago on the Violet Voss site, just wanting to see that it was there. I mean, it's a pretty universal palette as far as kind of a nice blend of neutrals and colorful shadows, and also a blend of cooler tones and warmer tones to appeal to a bigger audience, really. So I think it's a workhorse palette, more so than the Like a Boss palette. So let me just show you the two again side by side. I would call the hashtag palette, which is the one I have here, the more wearable of the two, in my opinion, mostly because the metallics or heavy-duty shimmers in the Like a Boss palette tend to be more colorful, deeper, richer, and they may not be as wearable in any environment. And save a couple of the purples, I would say that the hashtag palette doesn't really have that issue as much as the Like a Boss does. Those are my impressions anyway, but of course I have worn the Like a Boss palette and I have not worn this one yet, and I may decide that I'm full of beans when it comes to my initial assessment. But again, when you take a look at a palette, swatch is the first kind of step, or first impressions. Sometimes first impressions come first. You just put it on your eye and see what you think. But it's with use that we can start to really get a feel for how the palette behaves and how we behave as far as when we go and reach for a given palette. I have talked enough. I turn it over to you. Let me know what you think of the swatches. Let me know what you think of either or both of the palettes. If you have experienced them yourself, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. I appreciate every single comment, and I really do love hearing from you. And with that, I will say thank you so much for watching. I hope you found the swatches useful, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. But for now, take care.